What would you do if your own daughter-in-law publicly asked the internet to vote on removing you from your own family? That's exactly what happened to me. My face was circled in red like a target, while thousands of strangers laughed and agreed that I didn't belong. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the house they were proudly living in wasn't my son's house at all. Because the moment I typed one sentence back, their perfect family story was about to collapse. Before we continue, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves powerful stories. Now let me tell you exactly what happened next. I was looking at my own face on that phone screen, outlined in thick red marker like a target on a practice range, while my daughter-in-law invited her followers to vote on which member of our family should be erased. The responses flooded in like something toxic, every cackle, every cheerful agreement landing like an open-handed strike against my 68-year-old dignity. So I typed back the sentence that would set everything into motion. The house you are living in belongs to me, not your husband. And I just cast my vote to remove you from my property. Now let me explain how I arrived at that moment, sitting in my car outside what the whole world assumed was my son's house, holding the deed that told the real story. It began with what should have been a joyful occasion. David, my 42-year-old son, had just received a promotion at his accounting firm. His wife, Stephanie, 15 years his partner in marriage, decided this warranted a family portrait for her social media audience. That's the world we live in now, and nothing exists until it's been posted and validated by strangers. Martha, move over there. Stephanie instructed, directing me to the outermost edge of our small gathering. Not a mom, Martha. The way she used to address me in earlier years, just Martha, spoken in the flat, impersonal tone she'd been cultivating lately, the tone of someone speaking to a contractor rather than the woman who raised her husband. I moved where she pointed and watched her arrange David and their two teenagers, Emma and Josh, in the center of the frame. The ideal family unit. I was clearly the addendum, the mismatched piece that complicated the visual she was constructing. She photographed them for what felt like hours, finding fault each time. David, angle your head differently. Emma, show your teeth when you smile. Josh, put the phone in your pocket for 30 seconds. But when her eyes landed on me, all she produced was a slow exhale, as though my very existence was a burden she was tolerating. The photograph she ultimately selected was genuinely beautiful. I'll give her that. David looked accomplished in his new suit. The children could have stepped out of a catalog. Stephanie radiated the particular glow of a woman who has achieved exactly the outcome she intended. Even I appeared reasonably decent, standing slightly removed from the center, but smiling with real warmth at the people I loved. What I had no way of knowing was what she intended to do with that image. 3 days later, my neighbor Carol appeared at my front door, her face burning with righteous outrage. Martha, honey, you need to look at this right now. She pushed her phone into my hands, and there it was, our family photograph, but with my face now ringed in bold red marker. The caption read, "Family game. If you could remove one person from this picture, who would it be?" I think you already know my answer. My heart simply stopped. I scrolled through the comment section, each entry a new small injury, definitely the old woman. Why was she in the picture at all? Time to consider the nursing home. That family would be flawless without the dead weight. And Stephanie had replied to each of these with laughing emojis and rows of hearts. She was savoring it. My public degradation was her entertainment, the content she'd manufactured for her followers. As I sat staring at the screen, the memory of purchasing that house 12 years earlier came rushing back with unexpected force. David had just married Stephanie, and they were sharing a suffocating apartment, sinking under the combined weight of student debt and credit card balances. My husband, Frank, was still alive then, and we had recently received a meaningful inheritance from his mother's estate. "Mom, we've been looking at houses," David had confided one Sunday at dinner. "But the market is completely unreasonable right now. We can't qualify for anything worth living in on our combined salaries." I'd watched Stephanie carefully that evening, how her attention drifted to her phone whenever the subject of money surfaced, how she discovered sudden fascination with the tablecloth whenever David mentioned their financial difficulties. But I also witnessed how completely my son adored her, how his whole face brightened when she laughed, how fiercely he positioned himself whenever anyone offered the mildest criticism of her. Frank and I deliberated for weeks. We could contribute to a down payment, he suggested one evening while the news played in the background. Or we could do something better than that, I said, the shape of an idea forming. We could purchase the house outright, let them live in it, and they could pay us rent until they're in a more stable financial position. Frank studied my expression the way he always did when he recognized the particular look I got while working through a complex problem. "You're thinking about keeping it in your name alone as a safeguard," he said. I explained my reasoning. Marriages can be unpredictable, and if anything went wrong, at least David would retain some protection. It seemed so thoughtful at the time, so responsible. When we found the right property, a handsome colonial with 4 bedrooms and a generous backyard for the grandchildren we quietly hoped would arrive, I placed it entirely in my name. The deed, the insurance policy, the property taxes, all of it mine. David and Stephanie moved in radiating the pure excitement of 2 people beginning the life they'd always imagined. For a while, the arrangement was everything we'd hoped for. They paid modest rent that barely covered the taxes and upkeep. Frank and I felt a deep satisfaction in having given our son such a secure beginning, but then the language started shifting. Stephanie began referring to me in social settings as David's mother, who helped us with the house. Then it evolved to David's mother, who gave us money for the house. The story refined itself over the years until the prevailing understanding in their circle was that David had purchased the house himself, with minor financial assistance from his parents. I never corrected any of it. There was no reason to. This was never about credit. Frank died 5 years ago. In the fog of my grief, I'd been even more open-handed. I stopped requesting rent entirely. "Your family," I told David when he insisted on continuing to pay. "This is what family does." Now, sitting in my car staring at that house with new understanding, I saw with sharp clarity how completely I had been written out of the story of our family's prosperity. My phone kept chiming with fresh comments on Stephanie's post, more voices agreeing that I was the expendable element in our family photograph. But scattered among the cruelty were a handful of decent people who called the post what it was: vicious and disrespectful. One comment arrested me entirely. "That's somebody's mother. How would you feel if your own daughter-in-law did this to yours?" Stephanie's response was delivered without hesitation. Some mothers-in-law earn their position in the family. Others simply assume it because they gave birth. I believe respect should be earned, not handed out automatically. Earned respect. Automatic entitlement. I considered the decades of Sunday dinners I'd prepared, the nights I'd watched Emma and Josh so David and Stephanie could have time alone together, the emergency funds I'd provided when David's car required expensive repairs, when Stephanie needed money for her real estate license. I thought about my house, where they'd been living without contributing $1 for 5 years. What precisely was I expected to do to earn my position?